Welcome to New Gameplay today. I am Kyle Hilliard here with Charles Harte. What's up, Charles?
Hello. I'm ready to mech.
To mech. Yeah, this
That's
is
the verb.
Excuse me. This is MechWarrior 5 Clans, which is coming out this year, sometime this year, I believe. I'm going to double check myself by the end of this episode. But yeah, this is MechWarrior 5 Clans, which where are you in the MechWarrior universe, Charles? Are you familiar with it? You ever played any of them?
I heard of it for the first time yesterday when I read a piece you wrote about this game specifically.
Okay, yeah, MechWarrior is an interesting series for me because it's been around since '89. It's based on a tabletop game, and there are dozens or maybe even up into triple digits novels written about the sort of the universe. You know, it's kind of in that a Warhammer zone, right? Of a really dense fiction and lore that has been explored a lot in other mediums, but I've only ever kind of known it primarily as a video game. I remember seeing MechWarrior 2 at a friend's house and just being absolutely blown away because it was the first time I had kind of seen 3D graphics. It was this PC game where you were controlling a mech in a 3D space, and the previous games there was a Super Nintendo game and an NES game and a DOS game. Some were strategy, some were action games, but there were always 2D games where you were mechs. So to me, this series has always marked this point of we're really embracing 3D game design. I had never seen anything like it before, but that was a long time ago. MechWarrior 2 31st Century Combat was the name of that game.
I was just like, I've never heard of that, essentially.
Okay.
But you continue explaining.
It's not a franchise that is top of mind, admittedly. There was this big gap in time between the MechWarrior games. There's a free-to-play MechWarrior game that's quite popular that's still going strong, and there's another version of MechWarrior. It's called MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. That's primarily an online multiplayer game. It's about competitive action. You sort of build your mech and you go online and fight other people. Where this is a throwback specifically to MechWarrior 2, according to the devs when I spoke to them recently for a preview of this is a it can be played single player, but there's also up to 5-player co-op, and you're making your way through a series of story missions. There are cutscenes, there are characters, there is a narrative, and it's a narrative that hasn't really been touched on in the video games in a while. It sort of looks at this specific point in MechWarrior lore to explore that hasn't been done in some time. And admittedly, I'm not in that world. I don't really know the MechWarrior lore. It's sort of a nostalgic game for me, and it's cool to see this new version. If there was a version I was going to play, it would be a single player game with a story and characters.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'm curious of how much of this gameplay is similar to it. The thing that's cool about watching this is a lot of times this really feels like you're putting a bunch of programs together to do these actions, as opposed to you press a jump button and you press a shoot button. The mechanics of mech are something they've clearly have thought about and put a lot of specifics into, as opposed to reskinning an action game or something like that.
Yeah, it is definitely because of the sort of lore that already exists. They've been thinking about how this all works even beyond the video game for years at this point, And also, I suppose I should mention this up front. This is not me playing. This is gameplay that was given to us by developer Piranha Games to sort of just showcase what the gameplay looks like. And there's a couple interesting things in here, you're switching between first and third. It's, ultimately your preference. But they also have this radial menu where you can command the other 4 mechs that are fighting alongside with you, and then you can also even pull the camera out into almost a map view. It's a live map view, and then you can also make commands and stuff there too. Like it is meant to be kind of an action strategy game where it's you and 4 other mechs working together to sort of complete your goals.
Yeah. So have you played this, or are we just going off of this? I was going to ask you more specific questions. I don't know if you know what the answers are.
No, unfortunately, I have not gotten hands-on on the game. I just I spoke with the developers over a call. They showed me like this. They played this demo live for me, and just sort of walked me through what's interesting and new about this iteration of MechWarrior. Mm-hmm. So I haven't been able to touch the game yet, unfortunately.
I was mainly just curious about like the control of like your mech party, of like if you don't do anything, if you don't say anything to them, are they just gonna go on autopilot and do what they want, or are you like, that's what I'm curious about. Like how much of this is how much of your energy are you diverting to like making sure people know what to do? And I can see in this instance they're being very specific. They're like go right here.
Yeah, they're like you go here, you go here, you go here.
Which is really cool.
But I suppose I'm guessing you'd maybe you could be successful if you just ignored them and let them do their own thing. But I imagine the game it has always been about these like crews of mechs like working together. So I think just by design they want you to be very hands-on and directing a bunch of people at once while you're also firing lasers and shooting missiles and stuff on your own.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to show off a little bit of it. I think it looks cool. It looks old school in a way that I appreciate. Like with my limited knowledge of the original game and like being very impressed with it back in like 1995, this feels like a proper throwback to sort of that era of 3D mech PC games, where there's almost like more than you need in terms of like hands-on controls and ability to edit things and like what's going on. So it's like I remember just being completely overwhelmed by that stuff watching a friend play it, and I was like, you're doing so much. I'm used to like running and jumping on a Goomba. Like that's like the speed that I'm going, and you're like you're like activating windshield wipers and stuff. Well, I think that seems to be where they're at with clans here, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to articulate of like when I was talking about mech specifically, of like there's a thing when you're using like a software, like when I'm using video editing software, there's so many settings in there, and I have used it professionally for years and I'm still discovering new shortcuts and stuff, and I like the like technological like systems of this where it's like there's a lot of stuff and you might not even use all the systems, but like once you master it and like exactly what menus to go into, and you're like, if I do this, then these better things will happen and I should position them like that. That's a really cool thing to like gain mastery over.
Yeah,
which is exciting. For sure.
And now, with all that said, one thing they did talk to me about is like this game is coming to consoles. It's not just PC. And one thing they're focused on is like making sure the game works well with a controller. Like they want this to be sort of the accessible entry that people sort of maybe they hope that this is a lot of people's first mech warrior game. So even though I'm talking a big game about how sort of complicated it all seems, like they brought it up on their own. They're like, by the way, like we want this game to play well with a controller. That is very important to us.
Sure, yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah. It looks complex but not like obtuse. Like it doesn't feel like I could never understand it. But I'd have to learn it, and that's a thing I enjoy. I like that like feeling of I know exactly what I'm doing and I am in control of this.
MechWarrior 5 Clans coming to PC and consoles in 2024.